This is That Leftovers Show. 3 skilled cooks will compete over 2 rounds, creating new dishes out of leftovers.
I cannot believe you turned your tamale into the gnocchi.
The cook with the best dishes goes home with $10,000.
Oh, we about to go on a journey with this.
Yeah, the journey is called Cordkillers, right? Yes, I got it. Nailed it. I got it.
I'm sorry, the correct answer was Journey sings Open Arms.
Sorry.
Welcome to Cordkillers, the show about watching the stuff you love, when you want, where you want, however you want. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Brian Brushwood, and I will take no longer needing to phrase things as a question for 200, Tom.
Too soon. Too soon.
Yeah, I guess so, yeah. But I'll tell you what is not too soon is how quickly we have back one of our BFFs in the whole world. Everybody welcome Jennie Josephson!
Yay!
I just have one question about that leftovers show. Have people's mouths been on that food?
Well, they only a few of the people, because the rest vanished from planet Earth. Unless I'm thinking of a different leftovers show.
It's a mashup.
Very difficult to look up information in the show. This is called Best Leftovers.
I feel scarred. I'm
Right.
scarred.
The leftovers is because a third of all food disappeared from fridges.
and the other third, they didn't vanish. They just got tired of this dumbass party and left.
And they all went to Australia
That's right.
and had schnitzels. Actually, that leftovers reminds me of a public access show that a couple of friends of mine worked on in San Francisco back in the 90s, where they would the conceit was they would barge into someone's apartment, find what was in their fridge, and take whatever was there and make a meal out of it.
That's awesome.
It's a pandemic.
Yeah.
Can't barge into people's houses anymore.
Yeah.
But you can watch Cordkillers. That's why we make it. So let's move on to the primary target. We have a survey from the National Research Group. If you've never heard of NRG, they are longtime providers of data to studios. They've been owned by Nielsen in the past. They're owned by a independent firm now. And NRG conducted a survey to determine which are the strongest entertainment franchises. So basically, franchises, things that can continue to give you new shows, new movies, new stuff that people love. 350,000 interviews conducted covering 700 franchises. The results focused on which franchises would stay relevant to fans over time. And Disney, mostly made up of Marvel properties, took 14 of the top 20 entries on the list. Netflix had 3. And remember, this wasn't just about streaming services. In fact, Netflix had more than Disney Plus, if you look at it that way. Netflix had 3, Marvel and Disney had 14, and the other 3 were Hamilton, Mario Brothers, and John Wick. The top 5 in order were, number 1, The Mandalorian. So Disney Plus does get bragging rights taking number 1. Number 2, Avengers. Might have guessed that. Number 3, Stranger Things. Number 4, the aforementioned John Wick. And number 5, Black Panther. Some franchises scored well on particular aspects of the survey. So Variety pointed out that the bolder a franchise was judged, the more likely people were to talk about it. And Black Mirror and Cosmos did well on boldness. And notable to me was the high ranking of the streaming franchises among the rest of the list, which was all made up of blockbuster films except for Mario Brothers.
Yeah, well, and some curious artifacts in there. For example, Black Widow comes in at number 10 on this list. Isn't there not a Black Widow movie or television of any variety out yet?
Not yet,
right?
But it is just about there, and she can be considered a franchise because she's been in other movies as well.
Sure.
I have so many methodology questions, like so many. So obviously franchise is not being used in the sense of there is more than one of them, right? So that, because Hamilton is on that list, it really just means a property which has future potential based on what people are talking about. Is that?
Yeah, I would say it sounded to me like
so.
brand
Although consider that Hamilton
Yeah.
is a soundtrack. It is a Disney Plus movie. It is in a Broadway play. So there are already varying ways to consume it. But yeah, it doesn't have to have multiple elements. As you pointed out, Brian, it doesn't even have to have come out as a standalone movie yet, apparently.
One of the other surprises that leapt out at me is that Spider-Man is on there twice under 2 incarnations. So normally you would think that splinter faction. For example, a Super Mario or Mario Brothers a television show would be different than or would be the same as Mario Brothers game or various incarnations. But in this case, you have Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse on there at number 9 and Spider-Man Full Stop at number 17. I am so right with you, Jenny. As the more I look at this, the more I have questions about the methodology and exactly what they asked. But I think we could all, I mean, obviously, they felt comfortable putting this out as an indication of future interest and the ability, like these are going to be lasting things. I was surprised to see Ozark so high up there. I thought that was kind of a fringy. It feels so indie to me. I wouldn't have put it above Thor.
The surest way to upset a statistician is to back in to a survey by saying, I don't like the results. I question your methodology.
Oh, no, I'm just confused by the results.
Well, no, and I put that out there because I think a lot of people will have that reaction. I try to look at this and say, okay, I don't know what the exact methodology is, but they have a huge sample size, 300 some thousand interviews. They are a respected agency that's been around for a long time, and the studios have relied on their data. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but I imagine that there is some methodology, there is some solidity to this, which makes it worth my time to look at this list and say, all right, that is interesting. I wonder what would cause, is it a definition where they're like, no, Into the Spider-Verse is different enough. That's Sony's own franchise, and we want to measure that separately because they could have just measured Avengers and put everything under that.
And almost certainly they've done like A, B, and C versions of everything. Some that included Into the Spider-Verse as a separate entity. Some that only included the word Spider-Man or what have you. I'm sorry I stepped on you just then, Jenny. What were you about to say?
Oh, I just want to see. I'm just fascinated by the rules, right? Like, so I don't think it's wrong or right, and I actually don't quarrel with this. Like, I want to understand what franchise means, because and I get your point, Tom, about the multi-form of media, that it goes across media, and that's what a lot of these, except Ozark, really is just like, are you saying shows and movies? Because that's fine.
Well, however they pick it, I think the question also is, what does that mean? For example, Ozark, it could be that it scored very, very highly in, will you continue to watch this show season after season, forever and ever and ever, amen. And maybe that it just blew the roof off on that. Or like I look at something like Coco making the top 20 doesn't make me suspect that Coco 2, Even Deader, is around the corner. But it does indicate to me that if I am making plans for 2024 to 2026, that on Broadway musicals, I might think, oh, Coco is ripe and primed and ready to be a Broadway smash. And, because I could already imagine, the blacklight fluorescent, choreographed dance numbers that they're going to do. Similar to, I guess I said my whole piece. Oh, and like
Hamilton 2, more Hamiltons who did less.
Hamilton as a movie, because so far we've only seen a recording of the stage show, but a full-on Hamilton movie, that would be a strong indication of, right?
Yes.
More rooms, more happening. Hamilton 2.
Stranger Things movie, that kind of thing.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that makes this feel like a legitimate survey is they, yes, we don't know how they picked the 700, but they do talk in the Variety article about, looking at boldness, inclusivity, thought-provoking ability. It's a qualitative study. Don't get me wrong. It's not, ironclad numbers. But I think what they're identifying here is, hey there, Netflix, if you wanted to, capitalize on Ozark, you've got a really strong franchise there. Even though you haven't done anything with it other than make seasons, you might want to think about that. And like you said with Coco, I think the Broadway analogy is a great idea of like, you might not make Coco 2, you might not make a Coco spinoff series, but you might make a Coco Broadway play, or you might, make something else in the Coco franchise that's similar somehow, that's called something different. But it doesn't have to have been capitalized on for this survey. In fact, the survey is more valuable for those things where it points out like, hey, you haven't done anything else with Coco, but you might want to consider it.
Yeah.
Hamilton, the animated series.
Or a short film, if you're Pixar's, you're sitting around, it's like, oh, maybe if we made a 30-minute Coco's Dream, and it could be, one day Coco goes to sleep and he's not quite in the land of the dead, but it's like he's there or something.
And I think the reason this caught my eye is, given all of that, And given the number of Marvel films on here, which I don't think surprises any of us, The Mandalorian's number one. Not Star Wars. The Mandalorian.
Oh, yeah.
Streaming
Is Star Wars even on this
series.
list?
No, not in the top 20.
Not in the top 20. Wow. Also, Bryce correctly corrected me. Coco was the grandmother. Sorry.
He's always in the land of the dead.
All right.
These days. So anyway, The Mandalorian and Stranger Things being two of the top three being streaming services caught my eye. I thought that was interesting. Ozark being up there, hanging there with The Witcher, right between Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Like, it's essentially what this is telling me is, with a few exceptions, you make a Marvel movie or a streaming series.
Yeah.
That's how you build a strong franchise right now.
Man, I just want Ozark action figures. I want an Ozark expanded universe set of novels. I want an Ozark branded water bottle. I want an Ozark rap album. I want, I can keep going.
I want an Ozark themed show in Branson, Missouri, near the Ozarks.
Oh my God, Ozark the musical.
Yes.
All right, that's pretty good.
Wow.
3 times a night. Come and see it now. The hottest ticket in town.
What this does tell me, and this is very heartening to have data back up, because as we all know, development executives really like other people to tell them it's okay to do a show they know they should do. What this tells me you're going to see is Ahsoka, the limited series. Where's Ezra, the limited series. Like, you are about to see a lot of shows in the Star Wars gritty near future universe. Like, and that's good news to me. I don't know if you can tell that is good news to me, but it's good news to me. And so I think it's just, this provides cover, and I'm really excited about the cover that this provides for The Mandalorian. And if no one has bought Dave Filoni a diamond cowboy hat yet, they might want to, him and Favreau, whatever they want.
It's probably in his rider. There's some other, we don't have access to the full report here, but there's some other things that did get passed along, including games with social connections seem to be stronger in the survey, like Fall Guys, Animal Crossing, Among Us. And when you target by demos, 13 to 24-year-olds, top 5 franchises included SpongeBob SquarePants and Shrek, which I think if you had asked me, I would have guessed, oh, those are too old for that demo, but apparently very strong still, thanks to having good memes and videos online.
I was about to say, there is kind of an ironic twist to both SpongeBob and Shrek, where it's like, I think that that demographic goes through a phase where they enjoyed it unironically when they were very young, then they're enjoying it totally ironically in their early adulthood, and now they're old enough to maybe just enjoy it unironically again.
Yeah. Lots of interesting stuff in this study, and we'll be seeing that Ozark extended universe soon. I have no doubt. We can help advocate for that, Brian, if we had a little more resources.
Yeah, well, I mean, here's the thing. If you want to get Ozark the musical funded, you got to go to the bigwigs over at the government. They decide the winners and the losers. So there's a little thing we need to hire called a lobbyist. And I don't know about you, but last time I checked, they don't accept scraps of paper that I call Brian Bucks. So we're going to need something called hard U.S. currency. And you can give it to us over at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Man, when I was over at the Ministry of Musicals with my big stack of partisan wins, they wouldn't accept it. And they said, come back when you've hired a lobbyist. And I said, well, the only way I can do that is if we get enough patrons at patreon.com/Cordkillers.
Yeah, and that's why we're doing a special fundraising drive. That's right. For the entire month of December, even though it's November as we record this, the entire month of December, every dollar that you pledge over at patreon.com/Cordkillers, we will seriously consider giving to a lobbyist to fund Ozark the musical. And that's a promise you will not get from any other show on the entire internet. I guarantee
Listen, we're not saying Jennie Josephson is a lobbyist, but we are saying she's from New York. She knows Broadway. So
that's right.
She's got a
Powerful.
lobby.
I know Broadway publicists. How about that?
Right?
All right. Well, so let's. Why don't you just send on over some of those Hamiltons to Cordkillers? Patreon.com/Cordkillers. Yeah, you get your own RSS feed. You get special benefits, and of course, our super exclusive after talk segment.
Yes, do that now, and then we will tell you how to watch. Now, enough of this high concept surveys from these big companies. Let's talk sports ball. We're starting to see some experimentation with sports broadcasts as audience shift where they watch and how. First, I've got another bigger thing, but first I want to mention a milestone will be reached December 26th when the Arizona Cardinals and the San Francisco 49ers play American football in a regular season game that will only be streamed nationally online through Amazon Prime Video and Twitch to its Prime members. You'll also be able to watch it on mobile through Verizon's Yahoo Sports because of a pre-existing deal for mobile streaming. Previous streams of national games like this, though, were always simulcast on broadcast or cable, even if they were on Amazon, but this one will not. Now, if you live in Arizona or San Francisco, you'll still be able to get the broadcast over the air on your local channel, but everybody else will have to go to Amazon. That's a significant milestone. It's one we knew was coming, though, and it's part of the gradual evolution of sports broadcasts. Disney is doing something I think is even more interesting to me. I'll leave it up to Jenny and Brian to decide which of these they think is the bigger deal. But a wild card playoff game for the NFL is to be scheduled on either January 9th or 10th, depending on how stuff works out, and will be broadcast by Disney on 5 platforms at once. Same game on ESPN, ABC, Freeform, ESPN Deportes, and ESPN2. And not only will they be on 5 networks at once, but there will be 4 different broadcasts. ESPN and ABC are going to show what you'd normally expect, the traditional NFL coverage you'd expect. ESPN Deportes will cover the game in the traditional way, but in Spanish. Those 2 are not that unusual. ESPN2 will offer a free-flowing conversational approach instead of play-by-play. They actually tried this before with Monday Night Football earlier this year when they had folks like Peyton Manning and Charles Barkley just kind of sitting back chatting while they watched the game. And then Freeform is going to coverage targeted towards a young female audience. So an entirely different roster of talent doing the coverage that's targeting a specific demo. This is all in advance of Disney's NFL broadcast contract ending after next season. So I imagine they're experimenting with stuff so they have some data. And they're not the only ones to do it. Viacom CBS is going to do an alternate kids version of a broadcast on Nickelodeon January 10th.
Man, you had to set it up as an either or, and you have to vote. I'm going to say that one is an iterative revolution. That's the megacast. We've seen versions of that. You know, when a president gets up and talks, it used to be that he would be on all 3 networks at once or whatever. And then certainly there's large sporting events that are on multiple different formats, both, you would read about in this newspaper, also live radio and also on television. And so it makes sense that streaming would enter that pantheon. I do think it's a brilliant idea to target different discussions for different demos because the same people watching the game there's some that are going to be sports stat heads who are going to want to know every single RBI that's ever done in the Super Bowl. But the one that seems more interesting to me, and it's mainly for political reasons, is, boy, has the NFL been very cautious and lockstep about how it lets stuff go or be distributed. And the fact that it's streaming only anything of a game, I have to wonder how much, and we'll probably never know, but it's an interesting thing to sort of tease out in my mind, is how much of this even happening has to do with the pandemic and all the other changes. If everything's
this deal
up
with
in the air.
Was reached before the pandemic.
No
this was
kidding.
This was already in the works. Yeah.
I did not expect that. Wow, that's amazing. Okay, well then that only makes this even more amazing to me because I would have figured, pandemic. In a world where they're playing in empty stadiums, sure, why not? Go ahead, throw it on streaming.
Okay, so as someone who came to sports enthusiastically very late in life, and my husband and I literally would choose our cable providers based on who could get us not just the Red Sox, but the Nesson, the local Jerry, Remy, Don Orsillo games that were shown only on the local Boston cable sports channel. And that was for a long time only DirecTV. Like, that is the thing that made us never cut the cord. So the idea that, and MLB TV has gone a long way with this, right? And they're sort of like, I would say, a little ahead. But the idea that literally the world's most restrictive sports property is now starting to experiment with games as you want them, and that there is no definitive way to watch one game, and that, do you think I might finally be able to watch the game I want when I want, even in the way that I want, with the broadcasters that I want? That to me seems like the biggest deal.
So along that line, I suppose part of the reason that was my second place choice is because the various broadcasts, I mean, they're all showing the same content, but it reminds me a lot of, remember how a lot of sports people would turn on the game on their television, but then they would turn off the audio and they would turn on the audio from their AM live cast of the game. Like that seems like it makes sense. Like it tracks. Yeah, put that all on one stream, put 4 different versions of it out there.
Yeah, I think what caught my eye though is I expected the online only version to come. I mean, I partly expected it because I knew they had signed a 3-year deal to do this earlier this year. But even then, it was not a surprise when they signed it, because I'm like, this is where we've been going. It started with, well, let's stream one on Twitter. Ooh, that worked. Well, let's make a deal with Amazon, but it's got to be simulcast. Oh, that worked. Okay, maybe the next time we come around with a Thursday night football deal, we can let one game go online only. We'll just see how that goes. We'll make sure the local teams still get to go over the air. You know, this just feels to me like the logical steps to eventually streaming everything. Everything will be just on streaming somehow. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked, and this explains what Disney is up to, if the NFL really would just like to have all the streaming themselves on their NFL network, which they could just sell directly as an app to everyone. That's why Disney is going a little farther and saying, let's try 5 different. Let's try showing the NFL that we can do things they can't, so that it makes more sense for them to give us the rights rather than pricing it so high that we won't pay for it, and then they just keep it on NFL Network. Well, and not that that's going to happen next year, but this is what Disney is trying to show is, hey, they want to show it to themselves, like, what will we learn from this about how we can make money off of it, but also show the advantage they have as a company that does this for a living.
This is one of those things where when I really try to wrap my mind around all the vectors that go into a thing, it's amazing anything ever happens ever. When you talk about the existing contracts, people's future expected earnings, number of people who are going to tune in, and then on top of all of that, you have the very real, very important aspect of, for the first time ever, this will be the first time ever we'll have hard numbers. It won't be a theoretical exercise of how many people will tune in for a streaming-only NFL game. It's quite literally unknowable up until this game comes out, and that also changes things. Who is that data more valuable for? The NFL or for the streaming network that provides it, or maybe some interested other party? It's a big deal. I think, and it's huge.
You've absolutely hit upon the thing that connects the 2 stories that we talked about today, which is available and verifiable data. And that was always the thing, like the Nielsen's in the ancient times of the before, were always like statistical and like a little wonky, and it depended on people being honest and writing things down in a book. And now you've got data that is so large and so overwhelming and so many different iterations, if it's done right, that's the new currency of the land. And yes, the data can be wrong, as we've seen from many, many things involving overcounting of video streams on the internet. So it's not a perfect solution, but you're actually more likely to get more like a wave of data that you then have to speak that language. And that's the part that I think is really fascinating. As someone who has very recently actually literally worked for a streaming company, let me tell you, everybody loves data.
I'll tell you what, man, I will take empirical data that is rough around the edges and has biases and flaws that need to be fine over the dumb, flawed wetware that is self-reporting of what you watch, or even pinky promising that you're going to keep that listening device around you at all times so that we can know what radio station you're in, and then you forget it or whatever.
Listen, that one person out there writing the email right now about Nielsen's people meters and how they weren't all self-reporting and everything, we get it.
But still, those people knew they were Nielsen people, which affects their behavior. Like anything that removes the maximum number of humanity is the most reliable to me.
Way better than the data we had then. No matter how you look at it. Absolutely.
Right.
All right, let's talk about what to watch in Under Surveillance.
Not like real estate. It's all about location.
Under surveillance.
Just a few notes of things to watch. Right now, we're headed into the holiday season where they kind of preload all the announcements and then just let people watch the Christmas Prince or Switched at Birth or whatever the holiday movies are these days. The Christmas Switch.
Please just keep going with made-up Christmas titles. I could listen to this for an hour straight.
Yeah,
Christmas
the
Sloth.
Happy Holiday Elf Switch. Here's one that's not a holiday movie. The Expanse has been renewed for a 6th and sadly final season on Amazon Prime Video. Season 5 premieres December 16th. It's going to be amazing because it's based off my favorite book in the series. But there's 3 more books in the series that we're only going to get one more season, and they promised me it's going to be fine, but that makes me a little sad.
So there is more. I thought that this would be the completion of the entire thing.
Well, the season 5 is based off the 5th book, and there are 9 books in the series.
I gotcha. Okay, so theoretically, in an alternate universe, there was plenty more to mine there that would have been canon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My guess is what they're going to do I don't know what's in the 9th book because it hasn't come out. That's the last one to come out, and that will wrap up the book series. My guess is the 6th season is just going to kind of cut through some of the plot lines in the other 2 books and get us straight to the meat in the end. And knowing those books, I can see how that can happen without being too annoying. But man, I would have liked to see how they treated those books too.
The Expanse is a show that rewards full attention and remembering everything that has brought us to each individual moment. And so as a result, once I fell off, I think around season 3, it became a difficult hurdle to jump back in. And weirdly, knowing that this is going to be the last, and they're only going to promote it harder as we get closer, and now all of a sudden I get to have that experience that so many people had as Game of Thrones got into the end. Apologies to everybody who came running to that party. But as we approach the end, I think I'll be very interested in jumping back in and going straight through all at once.
I think we've learned our lesson about books that haven't come out yet.
Well, the book is coming out in March ish. So yes, it will definitely, the final book will be out before the final season comes out. And 8BitXT suggested maybe they do movies. Maybe season 6 is just book 6, and then they do movies for the last 3 books. That'd be interesting. That's not what they're saying, but that could be interesting. Disney Plus has modified the Marvel logo on Black Panther to include concept art, images, and excerpts in tribute to Chadwick Boseman. Just a little thing, but cool.
I was surprised at how moving it was. I mean, it's like it was doing, it's the Marvel logo thing. And it just goes considerably longer than you're accustomed to and considerably more heartfelt. And I normally think of these as sort of naked cash grabby for emotional real estate types of moves. But I found myself moved.
Yeah, this was a little bit of a hard schnurfle in my house.
Mm. But if you haven't checked it out, they tweeted it if you just want to see the logo, or you can go fire up Black Panther on Disney Plus. Disney Plus also dropped a Taylor Swift movie that shows her performing the songs from her album Folklore in studio with her writing collaborators, interspersed with discussions of how the songs came to be.
Yeah, so this is probably as close to a Taylor Swift concert as a lot of people are going to get. For both for a while in the past and maybe a while to come, and it seemed sweet from what I saw in the trailer.
Shake it off, Jenny. Netflix acquired 3 new South Korean movies and 4 new series. The movies were originally meant to be released in U.S. theaters, including space adventure Space Sweepers, time travel mystery thriller The Call, and a comedy called What Happened to Mr. Cha. The series includes thriller Sweet Home. These are the TV series that they acquired. The Uncanny Counter, about superheroes who work at a noodle shop, and 2 romantic dramas, Run On and Love Struck in the City.
Very cool. I know that. So how many of these are you are you guys going to be sweeping out your calendar to watch? Is there anything you know about?
I have to see what my drama list says, and then therefore how Eileen interprets it.
There you go.
I have to say the Uncanny Counter sounds pretty great either way. And the movies are interesting because these are movies that would have gone into theaters in the US, right? So that's a pandemic related thing. Netflix might not have got these until later. The series, a couple of these are series based on webtoons, which have been very successful, not only on Korean TV, but on Netflix as well. Things like Itaewon Class and It's Okay Not to Be Okay, W. These are all webtoon based series that get popular on the web as cartoons and then get adapted into live action, and usually really good stories.
Time travel mystery thriller. That's all you had to say to me. I'm sold.
I know, that one sounds good too. Finally,
adventure.
HBO Max has picked up season 1 of La Juaria from Amazon Prime Video. Amazon premiered the first season of the Spanish language mystery thriller in Latin America and Spain and has commissioned a second season, but has decided it would be better to sell it to HBO Max than to bring it to Prime Video in the US.
This is, I know that on our journey to a cordless universe, we love kind of picking out little markers. I don't think we've talked a lot about this particular achievement unlock is when streaming services get so big and so legitimate and so successful. I know we've talked about a few, I think One Day at a Time got saved and some other stuff, but I love this new used market for properties that are developed by individual streaming services.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money that goes into developing a show, even a streaming show, the amount of money that you pay to hire like 5 to 7 to 10 writers and the production and everything, the startup costs of a first season are so intense that it actually does make sense to just assume it was a marketing problem for your channel and see if you can make any money off the rights on another channel. Like, to me, this is,
Yeah.
and also fulfilling the global promise of like, hey, somebody had a good idea over here at scale.
Bryce, I think I'm stealing your thought from the chat room here, but I think it's right. It's interesting that Amazon Prime Video doesn't just bring it to Prime Video and try to get to the Spanish language audience in the US, but HBO Max just may have more Spanish speaking people in its audience, and it makes more sense for them to show it in the US. What do you had your eyes on, Jenny? What have you been watching lately?
Ooh, so like the short answer is everything. But the one I'd like to tell you about today is the Amber Ruffin Show on Peacock. And I just want you to take a moment and imagine trying to launch a new late night talk show with no audience, a limited set, and only one buddy. And that's Amber Ruffin, who's a writer and breakout star. And she did these fantastic desk bits with Seth Meyers on Late Night with Seth Meyers. And her Ed Sullivan is Tariq Davis, and they have great chemistry. And she's just taking a very small space, which is basically a little quarter of the Seth Meyers stage, and innovating what she can do in that space. In this new show, it's about like 8 or 9 or so episodes in, and I watch it and I'm just like, this is like new and different, and it feels great. And she's very funny and it's very pointed, and I cannot recommend it enough as a fresh voice in comedy that we should absolutely be all watching.
Right
Excellent.
on.
Yeah, I've heard some good things about Amber Ruffin, so it's good to have a trusted nearby reference on top of that. Brian, what about you?
Oh, I too am very future focused. That's why I'm watching a 10-year-old show from a writer who I fell in love with based on a 20-year-old failed TV pilot. Yeah, we're still watching Community. Where what's funny is last week or the week before, when Meryl Barr said that hold on for season 2, somehow hold on for season 2 causes me to suddenly notice that season 1 is 25 episodes long. Good God, 25 episodes of anything in a season? Are you people crazy? What was the world on back in the aughts? What were they thinking?
Yeah, that's like $2 to 3 seasons, right?
Yeah.
All about them syndication dollars.
Get the race to 100.
My thing I want to point out is almost near the end. So I wanted to point it out after I'd seen enough of it to give you a fair opinion, but before it's over, so that maybe you can jump in and catch it as it gets to its last week. It's called Tale of the Nine-Tailed. It's on the streaming service Viki from Rakuten. It's a Korean show about a nine-tailed fox. Very, very different than the one in Lovecraft Country. I just want to put that right out there.
You're answering the questions that inquiring minds were
Yes.
immediately thinking.
Based off the Kumiho legend, but otherwise entirely different. This is about a guy, Nine-Tailed Fox, who used to be the king of a mountain, but then he fell in love with a girl, and then she had to die, and he's waiting for her to be reincarnated, and we don't know why she had to die. We don't know why he's waited so long for her, and there is a kind of a snake lizard evil god after her, and we don't know why. So it's a fantasy adventure is what it is, and it's delightful. If you ever watched Goblin, the Korean show, you'll recognize the guy who plays the Nine-Tailed Fox as the guy who played the Grim Reaper in Goblin. So there's some famous Korean TV folks in this, and it's great. If you like that kind of story anyway, which I do, I highly recommend Tale of the Nine-Tailed on Viki.
Cool.
All right, Bryce, what should we be on the lookout for?
Hey, I've got an on the lookout pick for you guys. This is a weird one this week. I'm going to try my best to explain it. I tried doing weird things, and it's very difficult. So I am about 2/3 of the way through a new HBO comedy series that just finished airing called How To with John Wilson. This is a docu-comedy very much in the vein of Nathan For You. In fact, Nathan Fielder is an executive producer on the show. How To is about documentarian John Wilson, who shows in first-person view how to accomplish things like improving your memory or making small talk. And in each episode, you sort of follow Wilson's train of thought, right? And it leads to stories that kind of snake around to different outcomes, right? The small talk episode is pretty much on track, even when he ends up in Cancun at MTV's Spring Break, where like the episode on memory starts about interviewing an international memory champion, someone who competes in memory competitions, and ends up with him attending a miniature convention on the Mandela effect. So along the way, he's mixing interviews and sound bites, footage, a lot of footage. We see one here of just like accidents and things blowing up or car crashes, like just thrown in, and other bizarre kind of New York moments along the way. So this is all like got a very awkward vibe to it, right? If you see Nathan For You, it is very, very similar to that. And the very strange thing is that after like the first episode or so, you realize, oh, kind of anything can happen here. Any next thing that you're about to see could be the entire purpose of the show, or it could just be a detour. It's not any.
I'll say this much. This is my second time hearing you explain it. Much easier to comprehend with the visual element.
Yes.
Like, oh my God, I'll just watch that trailer again. I have no idea what's being said, but it's just a sequence of insane visuals.
Yeah. It's like if anybody saw the show Review, the scripted comedy show, Andy Daly did the US version, where I'm reviewing pancakes and he ends up like addicted to crack and homeless at the end. Like, it is that kind of tangential,
but quote unquote in real life.
Quote unquote real life. Yeah. I'm very skeptical about the reality of this, but the way it's shaped, they do a really good job of selling you of like, oh, there was no plan. He just went out and started talking to people.
When you described it, it made me think of Charlie Brooker's segments before he started doing Black Mirror. These kind of self-aware within the pastiche of a news program.
Sure. I think you could find some DNA from that in this too. I think it's really not going to be for everybody, but just watching it, every episode has found a moment to just make me like shriek laughing. There's one moment in episode 4 which is all about furniture covers. You got to cover your furniture, right? And so he ends up buying this cheap little chair. He takes it to a custom furniture covering place, right? Who, you're watching the guy make it, and he's filming him, and he asks, so do you cover the furniture in your home? And he's putting the plastic on and goes, no. Cut to the next scene. It's so smart. I don't know if it's smart. But it's really funny by just showing off the weirdness. I actually cannot describe on the video platform that we're on some of the stuff that happens.
Like a documentarian took their documentarian skills and decided not to apply them to a narrative, but to discover the narrative based on what they were shooting.
Yeah, it's so if Nathan For You is a send up of like business reality shows, right? I'm going to go in, I'm going to fix your business, but it's actually Nathan Fielder and he's going to mess it up. This is like that for YouTube video essays.
Aha.
That's I think maybe the smallest I can condense it down. I think it's really interesting. If you do too, check it out. How To with John Wilson is streaming. There are 6 half-hour episodes on HBO and HBO Max, because that has all the HBO stuff. If you've got something we should be on the lookout for, email us cordkillers@gmail.com.
I guarantee you right now, Bonnie's freaking out because she knows I'm live right now doing this show, but she just received an email with the subject line, "I think we need to," and only when she opens it will she see that I wrote, "Watch How To" on HBO Max. It looks funny.
Well, folks, National Novel Writing Month is coming to a close. I have once again reached 50,000 words and written a novel, which I have done most every year. In fact, two years ago, I did a novel called Trigger, which I then edited, gave to Inkshares. They published it. You can buy it right now. And the reason you can buy it is because I was able to do National Novel Writing Month. And the reason I was able to do National Novel Writing Month is because I get paid to do podcasts that give me the wherewithal to do the writing. And the reason I'm able to get paid to do podcasts is because you either support us on Patreon or you do other things that make it possible for Brian and Bryce to stream the show, like buy a doghouse
I just realized he's doing the bit. He's doing he's just following the thread wherever it goes. I got it. It took me a second. I got there. He used his skills as a podcaster to just freeform podcast talk.
I don't know what you're talking about, Brian.
I was just like, normally he pays off before then I got it. Hey, man, some of you guys out there are thinking about getting a new computer. Why don't you support our friends over at doghousesystems.com/rogue is where you go. You get the fantastic top-of-the-line gear. Most important, you get hands down the best computer service, customer service I've ever received in my entire life. Without a doubt, head on over to doghousesystems.com/rogue. Use promo code ROGUE at checkout. You get some extra stuff.
Indeed. Let's move on to the front lines.
Front lines.
Dave Chappelle has made it clear in many places that he does not approve of Viacom CBS licensing his old show, Chappelle's Show, because he makes no money off it. Now, Chappelle knows that the contract he signed gives them the legal right to do that. He still doesn't think it's right for them to do that. So he asked Netflix not to stream it. Netflix has agreed, pulling it down, though it was licensed to non-exclusive, so you can still find it elsewhere besides Netflix. In a video on Instagram, Chappelle said, quote, "I'm coming to my real boss. I'm coming to you. I'm begging you, if you ever liked me, if you ever think there was anything worthwhile about me, I'm begging you, please don't watch that show. I'm not asking you to boycott any network. Boycott me. Boycott Chappelle's show. Do not watch it unless they pay me." So he's essentially calling for pressure to be put on Viacom CBS to write him a new contract.
Bold move to try to incite a mob to do something with nuance and precision. Like we've been able to pull it off a few times here in the Diamond Club, but man, that is a tricky thing to do, to say yes, energy here, but not energy this way. Don't oversimplify it. Keep this just complicated enough that you wouldn't think it would work.
I mean, okay, here's what I come down to. Is this the contract he signed when he ran away from the show because it all got to be too much, and he basically signed away his rights to future residuals? Is that this contract?
Potentially. I don't know that for sure.
Okay. Because to me, I remember that time so clearly, being such a big fan of Chappelle, and I would say that he was under a lot of strain and a lot of duress, and a lot has changed since that time when he walked away from Chappelle's show. And I would say that he is probably absolutely due maybe a reduced amount of residuals. Maybe it's probably back residuals too that they're after, because that's where the real money is. Once you get to streaming, the little checks that used to be so exciting, and I speak from personal experience here, they go down to amounts that are hilarious, and you want to frame them on your wall. There's just like someone watched that Jessica Simpson movie in the Ukraine last month, and you're like, it's $1. But I think Chappelle is a big enough figure in the comedy world and a big enough figure in the evolution of comedy that this may be outside like negotiating in public, but it's probably worth like respecting what he did to change the game, and his sort of historical importance in that genre. So hey, it's not an easy one.
The other thing, Brian, to keep in mind is he may not need the public to do everything he wants. He may just need to show that he had enough people hear him that he can say, gosh, Viacom, look at what you have now. Imagine that delta if my Instagram said, hey, I got a new deal. Everybody go watch the Chappelle show now. And that might be enough to at least have some leverage in those negotiations.
Oh, sure. I'm not saying it's a mob the size of, the United States or anything, but it is a mob. You only need 100 people to make a big noise. Meanwhile, Comcast is raising its TV rates again, adding up to $4.50 per month for a broadcast fee and $2 a month regional sports network fee, which of course are not part of advertised rates because they're only fees. Those two fees are already $8 to $24 a month, depending on the market. It's also raising its internet-only prices by $3 a month. And Comcast is bringing its 1.2 terabyte data caps to almost all its customers starting March. Overages start at cost $10 for every 50 gigabytes with a max of $100 in a month. Comcast offers unlimited for an extra $30 a month. We could talk about that word, unlimited. Comcast says the median usage among its customers is 308 gigabytes. Data caps are mostly used to generate revenue, and they are considered ineffective in managing congestion. Man, I really thought data caps were on their way out, Tom. I don't know what Pollyanna sideways universe I thought I was living in.
They mostly are still. And it is odd that Comcast has decided to throw them back in, but I think that $30 extra a month is the key. This is Comcast saying, gosh, everybody has to work at home, and we've did our nice thing where we dropped the data caps for everybody for a temporary amount of time. But now that temporary amount of time is over, let's nudge everyone up into that extra $30 a month. It's still not perfectly unlimited, but it's not metered. There's no cap.
Well,
so you only go over the unlimited with Comcast when you're paying the extra $30 a month if they decide you've been egregious, which is a lot harder for them to prove. It's not like a mobile data cap where they throttle you after a certain amount of time, at least not yet.
So here, not to go too far in the weeds, of all the times to bring data caps in, when everybody is trapped at home doing remote learning from home, bold move to decide that's the time you're going to do data caps. But then I think to myself, well, clearly all of this is just a sneaky way to raise their rates. And if there's one thing that would be a dumber move than instituting data caps, it would be to raise your rates publicly. So instead, we're going to do a fee. We're going to start doing the data cap thing. Really secretly, we're just raising our rates by $30. That's where everyone's going to end up.
Essentially, yeah.
And I guess one other thought on there is I don't even know that I blame them, given the fact that all of the big cable providers, internet providers, are scrambling to redo their infrastructure to handle the upstream, because for years and years and years the upstream didn't matter at all, and then the whole world got on Zoom at once, and then it was like going to the gym and there are no bikes available.
Yeah, it turns out data caps don't do anything to improve that situation. You can just it's a problem with cable. Upstream and downstream, it's just harder to offer synchronous over DOCSIS. They're kind of between a rock and a hard place there. But one thing that is out there is some companies got rid of their data caps and found that motivated people to pay for higher speeds. So that's where I think Comcast may be dropping the ball, is they could just be offering higher speeds and make more money without data caps. Because what happens is when people don't have a data cap, they stream more often. When they stream more often, it doesn't really raise the prices, but gosh, it makes people realize, I wish I had a faster connection. And then they pay for the higher, faster connection. My guess is they're not able to offer that faster connection in enough of these markets. And that's why they went with this direction.
Yeah.
UK Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden has said that Netflix should make it clear at the beginning of episodes of The Crown that it is partly a work of fiction. Secretary Dowden told the Mail, "Without this, I fear a generation of viewers who did not live through these events may mistake fiction for fact." As an example, Australian Prime Minister Bob Hawke did do a TV interview that was critical of the Queen But in the Netflix series, he calls the queen a pig in the interview, which didn't happen in the actual interview. It's stuff like that the secretary thinks ought to be called out as a warning.
Tom, I don't know that there's much in this world I hate too much more than people who say, well, I know it's fiction. And you know it's fiction, but these dumb poor saps, aka the citizens of my country.
The Yanks.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, oh, these dumb poor saps, you mean like the neurosurgeons and the lawyers and whatnot? No.
Well, it's not the neurosurgeons we have a problem with, is it, Brian?
It's
Here's the deal. Sometimes history is less bad than the thing that's on TV and people get upset. Sometimes it's much worse. And what they did to Princess Diana was much, much worse. I lived through it. We all lived through it. We all know. People who don't know should say they got off easy in this with what they did to that poor woman. I cannot even. And when they get up to that Meghan Markle section, he's going to be wishing. I mean, like the queen having been like, I'm sorry, we're on a tear. The queen, everything that what's his name, Peter Morgan, has ever done about the royal family is a delightful whitewash compared to what they have really done. Now, again, I'm one of those conflicted people. I love watching stuff about the royal family, but I also understand that they are a nightmare factory for people who are, as they put it, on the outside. And some people die because of that. And so I just feel like it's like, and also the game of royal in and royal out and who knows which royal and who's speaking for the palace and who's speaking for this palace and everything in the UK, and the game that they play and the dance that they do is so complex. It makes our government look like they're playing pickup sticks. Anyway, sorry.
which, depending on who you talk to, some people may accuse them of actually doing.
Suffice to say, whether they put a label in front of this or not, The Crown is fiction.
Oh, thank you for clearing that up. It was not. I thought it was a documentary. HBO says Joss Whedon has left the series The Nevers, which he was set to write, direct, executive produce, and showrun. The Nevers is still set to premiere next summer. Whedon said he's leaving because he's exhausted and cannot meet, quote, the physical challenges of making such a huge show during a global pandemic. The Nevers is about a gang of Victorian women with unusual abilities fighting relentless enemies. Man, I can't blame any human being who just runs out of steam trying to create an awesome, gigantic franchise full stop, much less one under the current conditions.
Justice
Tom,
League?
would
You gonna bring
you
up
like to
Justice League,
speak?
Jenny?
No, I have much more. All right, let's put it this way. I'm just going to put a little bracket here in the show. I'm not going to take up the time on the show because I've already ranted once. I have a Molly rant worth size about Joss Whedon, but it should be done with Molly Wood. And so I'm just going to placeholder here. But that guy should take a long break before he comes back to any programming. That's all I'm going to say for now.
Yeah, the other thing I'll throw in there is they are investigating Joss Whedon's actions on the set of Justice League after a complaint. So he is dealing with that as part of this.
Today I
He
learned.
shouldn't be making any more shows about women. I'm sorry. It can't happen.
Finally, the Starbucks cup in Game of Thrones of 2020 has been the shadowy image of a crew member in a t-shirt and jeans appearing briefly in the background of a scene of The Mandalorian. But he's gone. He's gone. Disney has now removed him from the scene. No longer can you go to Disney Plus and see his shadowy visage in the background.
So that's also not the first time something like that has happened. Somebody sent me a clip. Obviously can't show it, but of Han Solo. And if you look over his shoulder at one of the close-ups, there's definitely just a dude wandering around the Millennium Falcon in the background.
I mean, are we just paying closer attention now, or there are more eyes on it? Is it because we have higher resolution television screens? Like, is it a combination of all of those things? Because this stuff does not slip by anymore.
A big part of it was access. For example, even if you had, let's say you ran a movie theater, you had no ability to fast forward, rewind, or even pause on a single frame because that xenon lamp is so freaking hot. That's why, whenever a film stopped, it would immediately melt. So even if you had it and could watch the movie again and again and again and again and again, you wouldn't be able to really verify this stuff the way we can now.
Although we've had VCRs where you could pause, but the resolution wasn't as good, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah. Will you miss him, Jenny?
I was deeply scrolling the internet looking for the pun about jeans and the Mandalorian, but I bet I could just throw right to Tom and he would have it.
Jeans and the Mandalorian?
Yeah, nobody separates me from my, and I couldn't remember the jeans
Din
commercial.
denim?
Yeah, my din denim. That's good. That'll do it.
All right. Let's get to the dispatches from the front. Probably should have been denim jarring. But anyway, Cliff wrote in and said, hey guys, this week you were discussing what movie theaters would do if movies didn't come back to the theaters after the pandemic. About a year ago, I was attending a showing at the great AMC Dolby Vision Atmos Theater in Paramus, New Jersey. Before the previews, they showed what looked like a concert presentation of Iron Maiden playing on screen and through the Atmos system. It sounded incredible. It was better than actually attending a live concert. The sound was loud and clear and of high quality, but you didn't get the ear-splitting volume and reverberations you get at an arena. The crowd in the movie theater seemed to really enjoy it. I haven't seen another presentation like this at a theater since then. I think the theaters are missing a big new revenue stream. I think many fans of bands would eagerly pay a premium price to go to a venue like AMC Atmos or IMAX theaters with a bunch of friends to see a presentation by one of their favorite bands with a great sound system, especially in areas like the New York metro area that I live in, where it's almost impossible to get a ticket to a concert without buying it for a huge premium price from a reseller. What do you guys think?
Man, I think that in the old days, this wouldn't be a sustainable business model at all, because just the ability to get a film print and then there have been concert movies, but if you get one of those delivered to you, you've got to run the heck out of it and get as many showings as you possibly can. But now the idea of a couple of theaters saying one night only, Iron Maiden concert will be shown, and everyone in the audience is going to be an Iron Maiden fan, and you're going to watch the whole concert together, and then that's it. There's no more of that available. Tomorrow night, it's a Billy Joel concert, and it's like that might work in a world where digital prints can so easily be shuffled all around.
I'm so hungry to go to a movie theater that I will watch paint dry on the screen and eat popcorn and be so happy. I almost get weepy every time we go past the arc light. So if anything that gets butts in seats that is not necessarily the same thing that got butts in seats, like I think the lesson of the Rocky Horror Picture Show is clear. People will show up for an experience in a theater, and it's time to have a broader notion about what that is.
Yeah.
So anybody who works for Fathom Events, please let us know why your live streamed concerts are not known by Cliff or others, because you've been doing this for years, even doing it during the pandemic. There's DJ Snake show from Paris coming to Fathom Events. Granted, your movie theater has to be open for you to be able to take advantage of that. But this is not done. Maybe it just needs better marketing. I don't know. In the meantime, Jennie Josephson, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you for having me on the show. I had so much fun. I love talking about this stuff.
I love talking about it with you. So does Brian. If I may speak for you, Brian.
Yeah, you know what? You can. See what I did is I said it in a sassy way, but I agreed.
Bonnie, tonight we're having steak.
Okay.
Also, thank you, Jenny. Where can we find you on the internet?
Well, possibly the next place you can find me, aside from recurring appearances on Let's Talk About Star Wars.com, is on New Year's Eve on the ritualmisery.com streamathon, where my husband Matt Flanagan and I will be bringing back for one night only a little show called Tell It Anyway. We're going to be telling stories in our block about New Year's Eve, and we have a lot of fun stories about that. And then I've just decided now on this show that I'm going to release a secret lost episode of Tell It Anyway on January 1st, 2021 at 12:01 a.m.
What? That's crazy.
There you go.
All right, go take advantage of that stuff, folks. Our website is cordkillers.com. Our email address is cordkillers@gmail.com, and we're live on twitch.tv/Night Attack, also carried at diamondclub.tv, Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. See you again next time.
Hey, Tom Merritt.
Yes, Brian Brushwood.
Know who I love even more than my own children?
Your other children?
No, not my wife. I know what you're saying. I love our $5 patrons. These are the people that keep us loud, live, and independent. Thank you so much, $5 patrons.
You know what? I love them more than not life itself, because then I'd be dead and I couldn't appreciate them, but really, really, really close. And I'm so thankful that they are here to make this show happen.
Thank you so much to all of our $5 a month patrons. You guys are wizards. You're champions.
Thank you, everyone.
You're heroes.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.